The galaxy was quiet in the region around the Solari Union. Many worlds shone like small jewels, each one carefully maintained by peaceful species. The Solari people lived on soft green planets where the sky was always clear and rivers ran gently through wide valleys. They had never fought a war. They had never built weapons. They did not even know what it felt like to be afraid of another species. Until now, it began with the first attack. The Krax Dominion arrived without warning. Giant ships like dark mountains appeared in orbit, and their soldiers stormed down onto the surface. Forests burned. Cities collapsed. Families ran in panic. The Solari had never seen violence on this scale. Their peaceful ways could not stop the invaders. Their soft voices were useless against the screaming engines of the Krax war machines. In the midst of chaos, the Solari leaders gathered. The council chambers were filled with the pale light of crystal walls, and the council members' faces were tense. Every member of the Solari Union knew they could not fight the Krax alone. Their armies were small, and their weapons were simple. Even their strongest soldiers would not survive one battle against the Dominion. "We need help," said Leora, a council leader with soft silver eyes. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. "We cannot stop them on our own. We must send a call across the galaxy." Another member, Talon, shook his head. "We do not know who might answer. We have no allies. Many species see the Solari as weak. Why would anyone come for us?" Leora's hands clenched. "We have to try. If we do nothing, we are finished." And so, the Solari worked quickly. Their brightest scientists and engineers prepared the signal. It was more than a simple message. It was a call for soldiers, for strength, for hope. It carried every detail of the Krax threat: their size, their numbers, their weapons, and their speed. The Solari even described themselves small, fragile, and gentle, completely unprepared for war. The signal was sent across light years of space. It traveled through the darkness, past stars and empty planets, until it finally reached a place the Solari did not know well. A blue and green planet, called Earth. On Earth, the signal reached Evan Brooks while he was on a routine patrol in one of the training zones. He stood on a rocky plateau, surrounded by simulated terrain for military exercises. His eyes narrowed as the message arrived, flashing across his tablet. He read quickly, absorbing every word, his jaw tightening. Beside him, Nora Bennett, his tactical officer, leaned over to read the message. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Fragile species under attack," Evan said quietly. "They're asking for soldiers. And they're scared." Nora nodded. "They don't know who we are. They have no idea what kind of fight we bring." Evan's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's the best part. They think they're calling for help. They don't know they'll get monsters." Fairy. Meanwhile, across the Solari worlds, citizens waited anxiously. They did not know if anyone would answer their call. Days passed, each one heavier than the last. Some families tried to hide from the approaching Krax forces, moving deeper into forests or underground tunnels. Others prayed to the old stars, hoping for miracles. When the first human ships appeared on the edge of their systems, the Solari were stunned. These were not graceful, noble-looking ships. They were jagged, heavy, and covered with armor that looked as if it had survived battles for centuries. The first humans to arrive stepped onto the Solari world with confidence. They were tall, their bodies strong and scarred. Their eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail. They were not like any species the Solari had seen before. There was something frightening about them, a quiet strength that seemed to hum in the air. Evan Brooks led the first group. He carried himself with the calm of someone who had faced death many times. His movements were deliberate, precise, and controlled. His uniform was simple, functional. But there was no hiding the fact that he was trained to fight in any conditions. Nora Bennett followed closely behind. She carried a tactical tablet and spoke softly, but her words carried authority. Her gaze swept the horizon, always searching for threats, always planning several steps ahead. The Solari leaders stepped forward to greet the newcomers. Leora's voice shook as she spoke, trying to sound strong. "Welcome," she said. "We did not expect anyone so soon." "And if Tinja, anyone so soon," Evan nodded. "We received your call. We are here to help. We fight alongside those who need it," some Solari muttered among themselves. Their whispers carried fear. "They are not like us. They are strong. Too strong." 7. Talon tried to calm them. "We asked for soldiers. They are soldiers. That is all we can hope for." The humans quickly surveyed the Solari defenses. They examined walls, towers, and small weapon posts. They noted the weak points and the areas where the cracks would strike first. Then, without asking permission, they began making changes. They dug trenches, reinforced buildings, and moved small squads into positions that the Solari would never have considered. The Solari watched in awe and fear. They had never seen this level of preparation. Even though the humans spoke little, their actions communicated everything. They were not afraid. They were ready. And they would not lose. "You will not survive like this," Evan said quietly to Leora, as he gestured toward a crumbling defensive wall. "If the cracks arrive, everything here will be destroyed. We can change that. We can save your people. But you must follow our plan." Leora nodded. "We will do whatever is necessary. You are our only hope." Over the next few days, the humans trained some of the Solari soldiers, showing them how to use weapons in ways they had never imagined. They taught them how to hide, how to strike quickly, and how to think like predators in battle. For the first time, the Solari began to feel a spark of hope, but hope was mixed with fear. Evan and Nora moved among the Solari constantly, observing their soldiers, correcting mistakes, and always testing them with exercises that seemed impossible. The Solari were small, delicate, and gentle. The humans were rough, relentless, and strange. Yet every day, the Solari learned more. They began to understand that these monsters were their salvation. At night, some Solari still whispered about the humans. "They are too strong," said a young soldier. "I do not know if I can follow them." "They are different," replied an elder. "Different and terrifying. But they fight for us. That is what matters." Then, the first Crax scouts arrived. Small ships that darted through space, testing defenses, searching for weakness. The humans reacted immediately. Without hesitation, they organized the Solari defenses, placing traps and ambushes in places the Crax could never expect. They were patient, silent, and deadly. When the Crax attack began in full force, the Solari finally saw the humans in action. Evan led a squad through a narrow valley. They moved like shadows, striking quickly and disappearing before the enemy could react. Nora coordinated orbital strikes, hitting the Crax ships with precise timing. The Solari could only watch in amazement. Their gentle allies were gone. In their place were creatures born to survive, trained to endure, and willing to do whatever it took to protect the weak. By the end of the first day of battle, the Crax were pushed back. Not by diplomacy, not by hope, not by miracles, but by humans. The Solari began to understand a truth they had never known. Strength could come in forms that were frightening, even monstrous, but it could also save them, and the humans made no promises. They did not seek reward. They did not ask for praise. They fought because they had to. Because they were born to fight, and because someone had called for help. In the quiet moments after the battle, Evan and Nora walked among the Solari soldiers. The aliens were staring at the humans with a mixture of fear and awe. "They do not understand us," Nora said quietly. "They think we are monsters." Evan shook his head. "We are monsters to them, because they have never had to survive like we have. But soon, they will understand. And they will thank us." The Solari, meanwhile, began to whisper to each other. "Earth's monsters. They are our protectors." And somewhere deep in the galaxy, other species began to hear rumors. A new force had arrived. A force no one had expected. The humans had come. The monsters had answered the call. The first battle had ended. But the Solari knew the war was only beginning. The Crack's dominion was larger, stronger, and far more dangerous than they had imagined. Even after being pushed back, the enemy would regroup and attack again. Fear returned to the Solari, but the humans, Evan Brooks and Nora Bennett, remained calm. To them, fear was useless. They had seen far worse on Earth. They had survived worse. Evan stood on a hill overlooking a valley where Crack's forces were gathering. His eyes scanned the horizon, noting every movement. "They are testing our defenses again," he said softly. "We need to be ready for anything." Nora, standing beside him with her tablet, nodded. "We cannot let them think they can win easily. Every attack we stop now will save thousands of lives later." The Solari soldiers looked on in confusion. They were used to waiting, to hoping, to praying that the enemy would tire or turn away. They had never seen a species that prepared for the fight before it even began. Humans did not wait. Humans acted. Evan and Nora divided the human teams into small units. Each unit moved like a shadow through the terrain. They taught the Solari soldiers simple but effective tricks. How to hide behind rocks without being seen. How to make traps from natural elements. And how to strike quickly and disappear. The Solari tried to follow, but it was difficult. They had never fought like this before. Their movements were slow, hesitant, and unsure. Humans moved with purpose, every step precise. They carried themselves as if the battlefield belonged to them. On the next day, the Cracks launched a larger attack. Their ships descended in clouds like dark storms. The ground shook under the force of their engines, and the Solari panicked. Children hid under tables, families ran to shelters, and the soldiers froze. Evan raised his hand, signaling everyone to stop. "Do not panic," he said. "Follow our plan. Trust us." The humans took positions on high ground, using natural ridges and valleys to hide their numbers. They set traps in places the Cracks would least expect. Spiked pits hidden beneath leaves, camouflaged nets, and narrow paths that forced the enemy into close combat. Nora monitored the battlefield from above. Her tablet showed every movement of the Cracks' forces. She gave quick orders through a small communicator. "Left flank, move to the ridge, prepare the trap. Fire only when I give the signal." The Solari watched in awe. They had never seen such coordination. Every human unit seemed to know exactly what the others were doing, as if they were connected by some invisible force. The Cracks advanced slowly, unaware of the humans' preparations. When they reached the traps, chaos erupted. Spiked pits swallowed soldiers and machines. Hidden nets dragged them down. Ambushes struck from both sides. The Cracks, who had crushed weaker species with ease, found themselves confused and overwhelmed. Evan and his team moved silently among the chaos. They struck quickly, taking out key targets with precision. His movements were efficient, fast, and deadly. He never hesitated, never faltered. To the Solari watching, it seemed like he was everywhere at once. Nora's orbital strike hit with perfect timing. Explosions shook the battlefield, cutting off the Cracks' retreat. Smoke and fire covered the valley, and the aliens could do nothing but flee. After the battle, the Solari gathered around the humans. Their faces were full of awe and fear. "How did you do that?" one soldier asked. Evan shrugged. "We survive. That is all. You will survive too if you learn the same ways." The Solari looked at each other. Some whispered that the humans were monsters, but now they understood that monsters could protect them better than anyone else. Over the next few days, the humans taught more strategies. They showed the Solari how to set traps, how to move quietly, and how to use the terrain to their advantage. They taught them to fight in ways that seemed harsh, even cruel, but effective. One lesson involved a simple idea. Make the enemy fight on your terms. The humans led small groups through dangerous paths, drawing Cracks patrols into areas where hidden traps awaited. The Solari watched, learning from each encounter. They began to understand that fighting was not just about strength, it was about strategy, patience, and timing. Evan explained to the Solari Council. You cannot fight them like they fight. They are bigger, stronger, and more numerous. You fight smart, or you die. That is the truth of war. Leora, the council leader, nodded slowly. We will follow your guidance. But we are afraid of what we must do. You should be afraid, Evan said quietly. Fear keeps you alive if you use it. Just do not let it control you. As the days passed, the humans became more than allies. They became teachers, protectors, and living examples of what survival meant. The Solari began to see the battlefield differently. They learned to move with care, to strike when the enemy was weakest, and to never underestimate the power of patience. The cracks, however, were relentless. Every attack was stronger than the last. They brought larger ships, faster soldiers, and more powerful weapons. Entire cities on Solari planets were destroyed. Each battle left the Solari terrified and exhausted, but the humans never gave up. Evan led squads through impossible terrain, guiding the Solari through narrow valleys, toxic swamps, and jagged cliffs. Nora coordinated strikes that cut the crack supplies and slowed their advance. Slowly, the tide began to turn. One morning, a Solari soldier named Mira approached Evan. She was small, delicate, and trembling. I do not know if I can do this, she said. I am not strong. I cannot fight like you. Evan looked at her calmly. You do not have to be strong. You only have to survive. Learn. Observe. When the time comes, strike. That is all you need. Mira nodded, still unsure, but she tried. She followed Evan's lead, moving quietly through the battlefield, hiding when necessary, and striking when she could. Slowly, she began to gain confidence. The humans also showed the Solari how to use fear as a weapon. They would appear suddenly, striking with such force and precision that the cracks could not believe what they were seeing. The Dominion soldiers began to whisper rumors about the humans, that they were unstoppable, that they could not be killed easily, that they were monsters born for war. The Solari began to notice something new. Where once they had been afraid of the humans, now they were inspired. They saw what humans could do and realized they could survive if they followed them. They still feared them, but they respected them as well. One night, around the glow of small fires, some young Solari soldiers talked quietly. They are frightening, one said. But they saved our city. They saved our families, another nodded. Maybe monsters are what we needed all along. The cracks, frustrated by their losses, launched a major attack on the capital planet. They brought a fleet of ships, faster and larger than anything before. The Solari were terrified. They had no hope of stopping them alone. Evan and Nora surveyed the incoming fleet. We cannot fight them head-on, Evan said. We must make them come to us. Draw them into traps. Slow them down. Make them pay for every step they take. Nora tapped her tablet. We can split their forces. Hit one group at a time. If we coordinate carefully, we can make even a small force seem unstoppable. The Solari listened closely. They were beginning to understand the humans' ways. They followed the instructions, setting up traps, hiding in narrow paths, and preparing ambushes. When the cracks attacked, the humans led the defense. They moved silently among the soldiers, striking down the strongest enemies, guiding the Solari, and controlling the battlefield with terrifying skill. Explosions and chaos surrounded them, but the humans were calm. They had done this before. Survival was their instinct. By the end of the battle, the cracks were forced to retreat once again. The Solari had survived, but it was because of the humans. They had seen monsters in action, and they had lived. After the battle, Leora approached Evan. Her voice was quiet, almost afraid. How? How can you fight like that? You do not fear death? Evan shook his head. Fear is always there. We feel it every day. But we do not let it stop us. We use it. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. That is all, Nora added. You will understand this too, if you survive. Fear is not weakness. Weakness is not trying when you should. The Solari Council began to realize something. The humans were not just soldiers. They were survivors, shaped by a harsh world where only the strong, smart, and adaptable lived. The galaxy had never seen anything like them, and as rumors spread through the neighboring star systems, other species began to fear what they had only just begun to learn, that Earth had sent its monsters into the galaxy, and those monsters were unstoppable. The Solari whispered to each other as they looked at the humans. They are terrifying, and we are lucky they are on our side. And the humans prepared for the next battle, calm, relentless, and ready for anything. The Crack's Dominion was angry. After 2 defeats, they were humiliated. They did not understand how a small, peaceful species like the Solari could survive so many attacks. They did not understand how their mighty army could be slowed, trapped, and defeated again and again. They only knew one thing. The humans were a threat they could not ignore. Evan Brooks and Nora Bennett stood on a cliff overlooking the valley where the Crack's fleet had gathered. The humans had prepared for this final battle for days. Traps were set. Ambushes were ready. Every Solari soldier was trained, armed, and waiting under human guidance. They will come, Evan said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. And when they do, we show them what survival really looks like. Nora nodded. This is it. We fight not for glory, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Everyone must follow the plan exactly. The Solari soldiers looked at the humans with a mixture of fear and trust. They had learned to follow orders without hesitation, to move quickly, and to fight smart. They still feared the humans, but now they also respected them. The Cracks attacked in waves. Their ships tore through space like storms, firing on every city, every settlement. The Solari panicked at first, but Evan and Nora's calm presence steadied them. Evan led the first counterattack. He moved through the battlefield like a shadow, striking the strongest Crack soldiers first. His movements were precise and quick, never wasting energy, never hesitating. Every strike killed or disabled an enemy, and his team followed him without question. Nora coordinated orbital strikes, dropping explosive charges exactly where they would hurt the Cracks the most. She gave orders in short, clear commands, and the strikes were perfect every time. The Solari watched in awe as the humans moved, thinking and acting faster than any species they had ever seen. The battlefield became chaotic. Explosions shook the ground. Smoke and fire filled the air. The Crack soldiers did not know where to attack. Every move they made was countered by a human-led ambush. They had expected to crush the Solari easily, but now they faced enemies they could not predict or understand. Evan turned to his squad. Move to the canyon. Use the narrow paths. Draw them in. Trap them. The humans led the Crack soldiers into the traps set days before. Spiked pits, camouflaged nets, and falling rocks claimed hundreds of enemies. The Solari followed, moving carefully under human guidance, striking only when the humans told them to. One Solari soldier, Mira, who had been afraid before, now fought with a steady hand. She followed Evan's instructions, firing at the Cracks when they were weakest. She had learned patience, timing, and courage. She had learned to survive. The Cracks' fleet was in chaos. Ships collided, soldiers were trapped, and the humans seemed everywhere at once. No species had ever fought like this. The Dominion had never seen monsters that could think, plan, and kill with such precision. Nora scanned the battlefield. Target their command ship. If we take it out, they will surrender. Evan nodded. We do it carefully. One wrong move, and we lose everyone. The humans split into small strike teams. They moved silently toward the Crack's flagship. Each team had a specific role. Disable weapons, take control of systems, and eliminate the commanders. The Solari watched, holding their breath. They had never seen anything like this. Evan's team reached the flagship first. They moved through narrow corridors, avoiding patrols and security systems. Every step was deliberate, every movement precise. They struck with silent efficiency, disabling the ship's defenses without alerting the entire crew. Nora coordinated the attack from above. Her tablet showed every movement inside the ship. She guided Evan's team through the corridors, giving instructions that allowed them to reach the command center undetected. Finally, Evan and his team reached the Crack's commanders. They struck quickly and without hesitation. In moments, the command center was under human control. The Crack's commanders surrendered, realizing that their fleet could no longer fight effectively. Outside, the battle continued. The humans had trained the Solari well. Soldiers moved with confidence, setting traps and striking at the right moments. The Crack's fleet was falling apart. Ships crashed into each other. Soldiers surrendered. The Dominion, once unstoppable, was now in retreat. The Solari cheered, but the humans did not celebrate. They moved among the soldiers, checking for injuries, guiding the next moves, and ensuring the battle was truly over. Survival was not about glory. Survival was about making sure everyone lived. After the battle, the Solari gathered to thank the humans. Leora, the council leader, stepped forward. "You saved our world. You saved our people. We do not have words to thank you." Evan shook his head. "We did what had to be done. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. That is all." Nora added, "We do not ask for praise. We only ask that you remember how to survive. You have learned much. Keep learning. Keep fighting. You will be stronger because of it." The Solari realized something. The humans were terrifying. Yes, they were strong, fast, and fearless. But they were also protectors. They had fought not for themselves, but for others. They had shown what it meant to survive, to adapt, and to protect. As the sun set over the valley, the Solari looked at the humans differently. They were no longer monsters. They were guardians. They had come from a world full of danger, shaped by hardship, and had used that strength to protect a species that had never known war. The humans did not stay long. They had more battles to fight, more worlds to protect, and more enemies to face. But they left a lasting impression. The Solari would never forget them. Evan and Nora stood on a ridge, watching the Crack's fleet retreat. "They will tell stories about this," Nora said. Evan nodded. "They will. And they will call us monsters. But monsters who protect, that is enough." The Solari began rebuilding their cities, stronger and wiser than before. They had learned the ways of survival, patience, and strategy, and they had learned that help could come from the most unexpected place. Rumors spread across the galaxy. Other species began to speak of the humans. They whispered about monsters from Earth who could not be stopped, who fought like predators, and who protected the weak. Fear and respect grew together. For the Solari, humanity was more than allies. Humanity was proof that even the most peaceful species could survive if the right kind of monsters answered their call. Evan and Nora moved on to the next system, ready for whatever waited. They had seen the galaxy at war, and they knew the truth. Survival required strength, courage, and the willingness to act when others could not. The Solari looked up at the stars, feeling hope for the first time in years. They had been saved by monsters. Monsters who did not seek power, glory, or control. Monsters who fought because it was right, and the galaxy would remember. The call for help had been answered. Earth's monsters had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. The humans left a mark not just on the Solari, but on the galaxy. They had shown that survival was more than strength. It was intelligence, strategy, courage, and heart. The Solari had seen monsters, yes, but they had also seen heroes, and in the end, the galaxy learned a simple truth. Call for help, and the monsters of Earth will answer. They do not ask for reward. They do not hesitate. They fight for survival, for justice, and for those who cannot protect themselves. The Solari would never forget the day the monsters came, and neither would the galaxy.